everybody. Welcome to Remember This with Denise Boland. And I am so excited to have with me my beautiful guest today. She's a Emmy Award-winning actress, best known as Norma Arnold, the mother on the iconic show The Wonder Years. Allie Mills. Allie, thank you so much for joining me today.
My great pleasure, Denise.
Oh my gosh. I met you last year.
Jersey. You met me in Jersey.
Yes. Doidy, and Doid. At the Chiller event, and the whole cast was there except for Fred Savage, but it was amazing to see you all together, and it was such a pleasure meeting you. And I felt like I've known you all my life because I've been watching you in my living room.
Life anyway.
Oh, so amazing. So I love backstories. So I'm going to ask you, I know you've done, you're a veteran actress.
Dig into my backstory.
I want to hear backstories.
Into the dirt of my backstory.
Well, whatever you're willing to share. I always like to know, like, when you were little, like, did you know you wanted to do this? When did it all begin? So I'm going to ask you, you're a veteran actress and you stole our hearts as Norma. But you've been on sitcoms and, movies, Broadway plays. How did it all start for you? Like, when did you know that this is something you wanted to do?
Well, I knew pretty little when I was pretty little. My parents got divorced when I was like 7, and things already weren't going so great at my home. So I think a lot of actors, kind of escape into that world of what would it be like to be someone else. I think that's how a lot of people start. My husband, who's was an amazing comic, same thing when he was very little, had a really, really troubling childhood. And so he just went right into magic as a little kid, doing magic. And then that turned into comedy when he was sort of a teenager. And so for me, I was little. And also my grandmother had a farm with a big barn, and I had 13 cousins. And even though I think the youngest, no, I wasn't the youngest. There was one younger than me, but I was kind of a ringleader. And so was my other cousin. He ended up being a Broadway actor, which is so crazy because he's, from a New Hampshire family with a big barn. But we put on shows all the time at my grandmother's farm, the cousins, when we get together. And so I already loved that. And my grandfather used to play the piano with us, and we'd all sing together as a family. And I loved that. So I realized that all felt good, like an escape good. And so I started doing plays when I was little in school. And I ended up in high school having an astonishing acting teacher, Mrs. Armin, with a long gray braid and chinos. I went to a boarding school, and that's when I got pretty serious about acting. And sort of because of her, she really encouraged me. I just knew I was getting all the leads in the plays, and I just had this feeling I loved becoming other characters. And we did, pretty heavy stuff like The Crucible. It wasn't, lightweight high school stuff. And so I went to a summer theater when I was just 15, the Williamstown Summer Theater, which is a great equity summer theater, and was cast in a play like Olympia Dukakis was the lead, and nice. They had great actors, Frank Langella and Blythe Danner, and really good people were there. And so I was cast because they wanted a young member of the Greek chorus in the play where Olympia was the lead in that play. And that began my sort of professional career, because I just fell in love with, the whole theater community, because these were all great actors. And that sort of began my trajectory into
and when I speak with actors that have done TV and theater, they kind of say the theater, I guess you get more out of the theater because you get that instant reaction from the audience. Did you find that to be true?
It is true that I think it's how the whole thing began. I mean, it began back with Greek theater. That's how theater sort of began, was in these giant amphitheaters. And at that point, it was really a religion. I mean, all of the stories were plays with themes of what the Greek religion was at that point, with gods and, and furies. But they were always telling sort of tales about how life could be really bad if you don't do this. You know, they were instructive, amazing plays, and very large. Greek theater is very large. And so it all sort of, you know, that's how theater began, was with an audience for a purpose, you know, to tell a story, to affect people. And I think that that is the greatest feeling that you can have, is that in that dark box, you might really be affecting somebody's life, you know, in a positive way, even though it might be a very dark play. If the message of the play is positive, even if you're playing a villain, you know, Hitler or anything.
Right.
So there's a wonderful feeling that you get in the theater, just knowing that there's all these human lives, you know, so it's kind of like being in a giant living room of people and telling a story that has affected you, that you hope will affect them.
Yeah.
So television, you just have to imagine that. It's very weird. I mean, it's like I run into people now in the parking lot who know Heather from General Hospital,
Right.
but I didn't know them. Do you know what I mean? And a very strange array of people have come up to me to say different things about her, but I don't get that immediate experience of what are people getting from me until I run into people.
Until you meet them.
Yeah.
And you get that feedback. Yeah.
So it's much more exciting to have it right away, even though in a large theater, most people don't come backstage. So you just have to imagine, you know, what they experience, but you can kind of feel it just by laughter and
Right.
silence. You can really feel when people are being affected. You can feel silence gets really silent.
Yeah.
When something's happening, you can, you know, feel when it's not happening.
Right.
You know,
That's what's so incredible with the art, though, because you are affecting people, you know, and it's got to be very fulfilling.
it is.
Yeah.
I remember, I mean, you were talking about the Wonder Years earlier, and I remember so many women would come up to me, and just because Norma, like her whole objective, I found when I first auditioned for that role, was keeping peace in the family. You know, getting her husband that scotch the second he walked in the door.
Right. Right.
So I was like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
and making sure that the family was okay and cohesive. And never having had children, I had a best friend who had a mom like that growing up, and I made her my, you know, sort of image, because my mom worked, so she wasn't that mother.
And that was rare back then, right? For the mother
Very,
to work.
yeah, that's because she was divorced. Very rare. Actually, she worked before, and probably that's why she did get divorced, because my father didn't like it.
Yeah.
She was actually quite a successful executive in the 50s, which was very strange. She founded this magazine called American Heritage. I don't know, you're probably not old enough to remember it. Do you know that magazine?
No,
It was like, it was hardback, monthly hardback
familiar.
magazine of like American history and American art called American Heritage. And it was really a big thing in the
Amazing.
late 50s and 60s. And she was the only woman of, you know,
Right.
a staff of 6 guys, 5 men and her
Wow.
started the whole thing.
And I'm
she
sure
was,
a lot of your friends, their moms were home.
yeah, all of them.
They were housewives, right?
All of them.
Yeah.
And very few were divorced. I mean, I was like one of very few people.
Yeah.
Until we moved into New York City. I lived outside the city for a while, but then we moved in when my parents got actually divorced. And then in my school in New York, you know, that would have been like 1958. It was just you know, the wave was kind of beginning of more and more and more divorces.
So you lived in Manhattan?
Yeah.
Oh,
82 Riverside.
wow. I'm on Staten Island, so I'm part of New York City.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I know. Can't escape the Brooklyn
I
accent.
love Staten Island. I love it.
It's great. I love it here. So yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the Wonder Years, because I was gonna definitely mention that, you know, I've had loss in my life, and there were times where I would just do a marathon of Wonder Years, and it was so therapeutic for me, because every episode was a lesson, was, you know, something that, you know, I mean, we could resonate with it, especially me growing up in the 60s and 70s. And you and Dan Laurie, I have to say, you just like epitomized my parents. Like I grew up in a foster home. My parents got divorced and we were all put in forth, but my foster parents, my foster father was just like Jack. I mean, he worked all day. You come in, he was a little grouchy, but you knew he loved you. He'd surprise us on the weekend by bringing us like candy and stuff. But, it was like, and my mom was just like that. She loved her family. She took pride in, taking care of the home and the family and keeping everyone together. And so I really resonated watching Wonder Years.
Well, how old were you when you went into foster care?
So I was born in 1964. And in 1966, I went into foster care.
Honey.
And I lived with them until I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
With any of your siblings or just you?
So there were 5 of us, and we all got placed in different homes.
Wow.
And little by little, my mother, got us back. But my mother was not stable, and my father was no longer in the picture. Like, he just left. And she was not fit to take care of us. And the story, not to depress you, but the story goes, when I was 2, they beat me so bad that I died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. And I spent 3 months as a 2-year-old in the hospital. And then I was with the foster family, so there was a lot of, yeah.
Story. Wow. That's a lot.
So, but because I was placed in this home, and they was, they were middle class, and my father went to work and my mother stayed home, and she was the homemaker, and I went to a school. And so everything, like with Kevin, it's like, that was me, or the boys in my class, it's just that was my story life, and that's why that show like reaches so many people, because we can resonate so much, with the storylines, and I cry for every episode, whether it be happy tears or sad tears.
No,
do you ever watch it? Do you ever sit
that.
back and just watch it?
I have. I mean, I haven't watched it straight through. Actually, the man that took over when Neil and Carol, who originated the show, created the show.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know this, but they lost a child
No.
after, I think we had done like 17 episodes. And that's why they left. It was
he young?
I think it was right after their baby was born, or right before.
Baby. Oh,
But it was like, I don't know if it was during birth. It was too
very sad.
emotional to kind of like get it. I didn't ever know the details of exactly when or how or whatever, but yeah, I mean, and we just all thought, we were devastated about everything, because we love them, but also, they're going to be gone, and we figured that was going to be the end of the Wonder Years, because it had just started, really. And so, anyway, the man that took over, whose name was Bob Brush, just texted us all that he and his wife, he married Mel Harris from 30
something.
Was on exactly at the same time as the Wonder Years, which is so, but they just watched every single episode in order and wrote us all and told us about that.
Yeah.
They had done that, but I haven't done that yet.
It's so therapeutic, I tell you.
The writing was so beautiful.
The writing and the writing and the acting, it was just so amazing. And the voiceover, I love.
Yeah.
I just love it. And I love when you were on Roseanne, I have to tell you. And I never see that, and it's not on YouTube, but I happened to see it, and I grabbed my phone and I got a little clip of it for you. But I love when you said, yeah, how come I didn't have the voiceover? Love that.
The boss in your own family?
Yeah. And I get all the good jokes too. Pretty sweet, ain't it?
On my show, the dog got all the good lines. I just translated. And then they shot me off into outer space, and I had that annoying Dr. Smith and that damn robot.
Well, see, nobody escapes me. That's why they call the show Roseanne.
They named the show after you? The wife? I didn't know they could do that. Those bastards told me that there were too many letters in June to be on the screen. It was at that moment I realized I had been ripped off. I should have been the star of my show. I should have had the voiceovers.
I love that.
Right. And then she said, yeah, and how come you didn't get the money that the child gets?
That's right.
Goes, I'm no fool. I produce my show, and I get a lot more than the kids.
That's right.
She did that to June Cleaver. Remember?
Yes.
You idiots.
Yes.
It wasn't called Leave It to June. It was called Leave It to Beaver.
That's right. That's right. She goes, and you're the one that named your son Beaver.
And she directed that show too.
She's amazing. Yeah.
She's really amazing. She
Rosie-
wrote it, I think, too, that episode.
Yeah.
A riot.
So
Yeah.
now, do you have a favorite episode, or is there like a favorite memory that you can share from being on set?
I have a ton of memories. I think episode wise, and also probably because the writing was so amazing, but also I loved it. It was called Pottery. And
Right.
it was about me going to a pottery class. That episode won the Humanitas Award, which is really rare for episodic television. It's for great writing, and it deserved it. I thought the writing was really amazing.
Wonderful.
And it was all about, Jack getting jealous. And for the first time ever in a young person's life, seeing his parents get into a real fight, not just an argument, or seeing Jack grumpy or something. And we had this fight in the kitchen for almost a whole day. I mean, they kept doing it, and they were trying to sort of decide how deep to make it. Like, should I burst into tears and get hysterical? And should it be that kind of fight that he's witnessing? Or, it was so important what in that boy's life he was witnessing. They took so much time with it. And then the director said, or maybe Neil, who created the show, I can't remember who made this decision, but he said, no, what we have to do? We have to take the camera and pull it all the way down the hallway to the very end of the hallway. So it's Fred watching us from far away, and then do a shot of Fred's face. And it changed everything because it became so much more painful to know that you were watching that fight through the eyes of a little boy.
Little boy.
It was brilliant.
That is brilliant. And the whole premise of the show is everything is through Kevin's eyes.
Everything.
Yeah. He's telling his story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just story, I've told the story before, but one of the weird things of, and why I'm always in the kitchen is the kids had to go to school for 8 hours a day. That's the law, right? So all the kids, my children or any of the kids in the school shots would all have to be at school. And so they would shoot other things that they weren't in during the time that they would go to school. I mean, they could pull them out for an hour at a time, another 2 hours. It didn't have to be a chunk, but they had to go to school. So they decided that they would do all my coverage before Fred came out of school in the morning. So I would get there really early in the morning. I made such serious overtime on that show. It's not even funny. I was always there late at night and then would come early in the morning. And we would have the table set up where everybody's around that table. I don't know if you remember our kitchen, but there was a
Yes.
table. And they would have balls of masking tape hanging that said, the butthead, Kevin, Dad, Olivia, whoever was at the table. And I would be at the sink and talking to everybody, and they would have my close-ups from across, and I'd be looking at these pieces of tape, imagining how they sounded. It was really hard.
Wow, I could imagine.
Because we hadn't rehearsed it yet, hadn't seen what their reactions were
Right,
yet.
right.
So like for certain
That's
scenes,
real acting.
it was hard.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter so much when I knew what Dan was going to do. We pass the toast, I knew how he'd do that, and how, Jason would fool around and Fred would fool around or whatever. But there was an episode called Mom's War where he wanted to play tackle football, and I didn't want him to. And I said, you can't do that. And I even came in my, my suit and walked down and said, went to the field, and I said, you've got to come home. And he defied me in that episode. So he was growing up, and he decided he was going to do it anyway. And he came home wounded, bleeding, because he'd gotten really hurt playing tackle football. And he walks in the door, and I'm supposed to just go, yeah, there's Band-Aids in the closet in the bathroom, and not be affected.
Right.
I told the producers, I said, I want to do that scene with Fred. I want to do that scene with Fred. I don't want to do it. And they said,
Make
look.
the eye contact. Yeah.
Yeah. And see what he's doing, how he comes in.
Yeah.
And they said, look, what we'll do is we'll shoot it. And if we hate it, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't match, we'll then go back and cover you when we do Fred. Well, later in the afternoon, when he came in and did that, I mean, I could not cry. It was so sad that he was like, he felt so guilty and he was trying to be like a little man, pretend that he wasn't hurting. And I was being strong, like I didn't care that he was hurt. And I got really upset with them. And they said, no, we got it in the morning. And I'm like, no, you didn't. And so we had things like that.
Yeah.
You know, and you win some battles and you lose some battles.
Every war has its casualties, and every victory its price. But life goes on. Nothing really changed that night. Nothing big, anyway. Just a very little piece of something that was never going to be the same. Not ever. The thing is, it's hard to tie a bandage with just one hand. Sooner or later, though, you learn.
Do you feel like you became a real mom to the kids?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I-
right.
Yes. You know, especially Fred was like 9.
Oh.
Jason was a little bit older. And so I was more like a, you know, I don't know, like an older aunt or something to Jason. And I loved Olivia, but it was not so much. I mean, I guess I felt in a funny way like a mom to Olivia, even.
She was
We got
older.
really
Yeah.
close. But she was, I think she was already like 16 or something.
Yeah.
You know, but I felt very protective of all of them.
Yeah.
You can't help it. I mean,
Yeah.
'cause it's
And looking out for
their
them.
childhood, they're not going to get another one.
Exactly.
You know
Exactly.
what I mean? And enough's enough. It's like, and they were very good about that. The
Yeah.
crew was really good about it. They played basketball with Fred. You know, we fooled
That's
around.
wonderful.
I used to put peas in my nose and blow into my milk glass when Fred was talking, just to mess with, you know,
break.
just keep it, to keep
That's
it
great.
like fun, you know, to make work fun.
That's wonderful. I mean, especially in light of what's coming out now about the child actors that suffered
Oh,
such abuse. I mean, it's
Oh.
awful. And the question everyone has is, well, where are the adults that were looking out
Exactly.
for them and protecting them, you know?
exactly.
Yeah. So thank
I
God.
know.
Thank God for that. Yeah. So now, I wanted to ask you if you liked the way the show ended, because the thing that bothered me about the way the show ended is that they made Jack die 2 years later. Like, if I wasn't crying already,
Yeah.
that when I heard that, I just started bawling, you know, so.
That was always going to happen, that he was going to die, but we didn't know when.
It was the 4th of July in that little suburban town. Somehow, though, things were different. Our past was here, but our future was somewhere else. And we both knew, sooner or later, we had to go. It was the last July I ever spent in that town. The next year after graduation, I was on my way. studied law. He's still allergic to everything.
Thanks a lot.
Listen, I'll be right back. Hang on one second.
As for my father, well,
How you doing?
Good.
Welcome home.
we patched things up.
Norma?
Hey, we were family, for better or worse.
Hey, sis.
One for all, and all for one. Karen's son was born that September. I gotta say, I think he looks like me. Poor kid. Mom, she did well. Businesswoman, board chairman, grandmother, cooker of mashed potatoes. The Wayner stayed on in furniture. Wood seemed to suit him. In fact, he took over the factory 2 years later, when Dad passed away. Winnie left the next summer to study art history in Paris. Still, we never forgot our promise. We wrote to each other once a week for the next 8 years. I was there to meet her when she came home, with my wife and my first son, 8 months old.
Were you ever Me Too'd?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy. How
Yeah.
young?
Oh, I mean, old. I mean, like, I don't mean old, but I mean, I was.
You were an
in my-
adult.
Yeah, I was an adult. The first time I was in my 20s, late 20s.
That's still young.
Oh, it's young.
Young adult, yeah.
It's young. And in my case, it happened twice, but the first time was something I really, really wanted this job. It was a great TV series. And I probably, well, he's now deceased, but I don't know, just out of respect of his,
Yeah, that's,
I probably shouldn't say anything. But I mean, I think everybody knew that I was not the only one. And the head of the network casting, amazing person, a woman who I'm so grateful to, called me. I'll give her name because she's a hero. Lori Oppenden was head of casting for CBS. And it was a series that was already on the air, but they were bringing in a new homeless character who would then become a love interest to one of the main characters. And it was a fabulous part. And I came in with my hair all stringy and like dirt on my face and like, you know, scuzzed out,
Yeah.
but she was super smart. I mean, kind of like Heather in a way.
right. I was going to say, you just reminded me of Heather.
A little bit. She was great. It was a wonderful character.
Oh,
And, you know, one of the people in the main cast was a police officer, falls in love with her, and they, you know, it was going to turn into something, they hoped. You know, that was the thing, is it was going to keep going. Well, I went in and there were a lot of people, like Shelley Long was there, were a lot of really good actors there because it was a good part. And Lori called me that night and she goes, okay, we have a problem. She goes, honey, you basically have the job. We all want you. He wants you, who created the show. I want you. The network wants you. However, he wants you to meet him at his cabana tonight at Fox Studios at 8 o'clock without me present. And I said, no. And
did
he
she
said,
know anything? Did she suspect anything, or did she think it was just a business meeting?
oh no, she suspected a lot.
Gosh.
And it wasn't the first time.
Ugh.
And she said, honey, it's up to you. I know this is a great job. But oh, that's the thing. He wanted me to come dressed as a 10. And I'm like, a 10? I'm a homeless person. And she said, exactly.
That's
And
terrible.
And not only that, Allie, but we all know what you can look like. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to see that you can clean up.
Yeah.
But you don't need to go with makeup and a mini skirt to prove, or else come into the office and show all of us if that's really the reason.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you saying to me? And I'd never had I hadn't had a lead in a series. She said, I'm asking you to pass. I went, oh, wow. And I had a manager. We talked about it. He had a lot of wonderful actors. And, I was pretty young, and he just said, I would respect, he said, they don't come better than Lori Oppenden. I would pass. So I did. It was really hard. But then I was
So
later
much, yeah.
hired onto that show without having to audition.
Was he no longer part of the show?
Was indeed the creator of the show and very much on set. And I went right up to him and I said, how are you doing? And I looked him right in the eye, and he knew that I'd passed and why. And I said, thank you for having me back. And I came back just as a recurring character, the sister, a hairdresser, I think it was from Queens, and sister of one of the cops.
Sounded a little like the
And
nanny.
that other part never happened. It was cast by someone who I knew, and I know she
had to
went.
take a trip to the cabana, though.
She did, and she, I
So
know her.
degrading. It's for women.
That's what's
Such a
just
terrible
like,
thing.
it's so awful.
It's like, they're holding it, like a carrot on a string. You want this? You want the part?
If it's
that's
really
terrible.
a job, if it's just
Terrible.
harassment. My mother taught me to use my knee. It's like, come on,
I tell
shut
my
up.
daughters that.
Like, get off of me.
Yeah.
No. Or you're married, shut up. Get unmarried and call me up. I did things like that.
Yeah.
But that was the only really big job that I lost.
And so
And
this
then
happened.
other times you're taking a risk by saying no.
Sure.
You never what's going to happen if you don't acquiesce.
Yeah. Is it going to be the end of your career?
Yeah. Or at least the end of that job.
Right. Right. Because
Yeah.
a lot of them network together too. And there's probably a lot of predators all across the board.
Yeah.
It's awful.
But it's really changed. I mean, it's a big deal now. I go to meetings and they don't want to close the door. So I'm like, wow, okay.
Good.
Yeah. Which I never even thought about, because
Yeah.
I would never have suspected the, president of a network to close his door.
Right.
But they don't.
Yeah.
But they don't want any suspicion.
I mean, it's good, but then I think it swung a little bit too far over where you can't even joke or tease or touch, God forbid, you touch somebody, they're going to sue you, so
Well, even worse than that, you can't do this, or you can't do that. It's when somebody accuses you, and it might be like in this ridiculous case of the Wonder Years,
it was
when
unfounded.
it's a false accusation. Yeah. And the people just want money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or they want to explain why they got, why they shouldn't have been fired because it wasn't them, it was someone, what I mean?
Right.
But it's really, the whole thing's tricky.
Yeah.
But, I think it's better that it swung that way. It's sort of,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So now you, in 2006, you joined the cast of The Bold and the Beautiful. And you were bipolar. So
I know.
like they were preparing you for
common
that.
denominator.
I was watching a scene where you were eating a tea bag. It's like,
I know.
and you made it look like you were just eating a piece of lettuce. I mean, it was like so normal. It's great.
Yeah, that was, I was just like General Hospital, I was just supposed to do 10 days because the star of the show, Susan Flannery, who's such a great actor, they wanted to do an Emmy trajectory episode where she had been abused as a child by her father. And she comes back to confront her mother saying, why didn't you protect me? And that was Betty White. So they wanted to get somebody to play the sister that would make a triangle that was pretty heavy. So they asked me if I would come be that sister who's just sort of stood there, and I've just taken care of Betty White my whole life. I'm now like 30. No, I guess in that show I was probably 35, 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, maybe more. I don't know, but that kind of age. And I just been living alone with Betty White my whole life and bipolar. And Susan accuses me too of not helping her. And we had such amazing chemistry, like from the get-go. And then that's when they asked me if I'd stay. And I went home and I asked Orson, I said, you know, I've never been on a soap opera before, but it's in town. And usually you wrap it like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And he goes, take it. Because he goes, you'll be working, but we can have a life. Whereas when you're doing a TV series, you get home at 11 o'clock at night, you got to study, you get up. When I was doing the Wonder Years, it would have been really hard to have a relationship, because it's so much, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I said yes. And, 13 years later, I just kept doing it.
Yeah. Well, you're amazing. Amazing. Orson. I love Orson. And even before I knew you guys were married, like I think I just happened to see on the internet and I saw you together. You know how I knew you were married? I was at the Equalizer 2 screening.
You were?
I have to tell you, well, I wasn't a guest, but I have to tell you, I packed up my family and we went to LA for the week. And the first night that we were there, we were on Hollywood Boulevard and we were like, oh, what's going on here? And they were setting up and they said, oh, Equalizer 2. They said, come back later and you'll see the stars. So we did. So it was me and my daughter. I think I have it recorded somewhere. And I have to tell you this, I saw you guys get out of the limo. I said, oh my God. And my daughter, all my daughters were big Desperate Housewife fans. Loved them as Roy. Oh
boy.
When you love somebody, love them a long time, you get lazy. You figure they know it, so you stop saying it so much, stop showing it. Yeah. But when you know you're going to lose them, that they won't be there to hear you say it, oh boy, you make damn sure they know it every second of every day.
I'm so sorry I brought it up.
Nah, Viz, I earned them. I was there for Miriam. I told her everything I needed to tell her. Held her hand when she was scared. These don't bother me at all.
And yes, we saw you there.
And Kathy Judson.
Yeah. So what I want, so sweet. And I watch the Game Show Network all the time.
Oh.
I see him on there all the time.
How is it on there? Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. And welcome once again to Super Password, and welcome to you both.
Thank you.
How you doing? Having a good time?
Happy as a pig. I couldn't be having a better time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for not finishing that. You both play this game as well as anyone we have on the show. You're both
thanks.
really terrific at it.
But yeah, you can tell the viewers who Orson Bean was and how you guys met. That's what I'd like to know, how you got together.
Believe it or not, we met at a Dan Lauria gave these play readings. Dan loves to produce plays and and do theater too. He played Lombardi on Broadway. He was amazing. I saw him with Judith Light, played his wife. They were great. But Dan loved the theater, as Fred would always call it. Dan loves the theater, because that's how Dan pronounced it. So he produced these plays at the Court Theater in Los Angeles, and Orson was in one of the readings. And Danny invited me that night, and I just decided, because I'd been on the show for a while and I was making, for the first time in my life, pretty considerable, when you do a series for a long period of time and it goes into syndication, it's the first time in your life as an actor you ever make money, really, serious money, if you're not a movie star. And so I bought like a big Spanish house in Hancock Park, actually in the same neighborhood that Dan lived in. He told me there was this house for sale and I went to look at it, and the head of 20th Century, it was her house and she was getting married and moving. Beautiful house with a pool and everything. And And I felt so grown up. And I was about to move into that house. I just bought it like that day. And my mom was coming out to move me in. We went to see the play reading that night. And after the play, Orson saw me in the audience. He invited me and my mom out for a drink with the rest of the cast. He said, why don't you join us? We're all going to go have a drink. And he says to my mother, what's the story with your daughter? She married? Because he told me he'd always had a crush on me from the Wonder Years.
I love that.
He didn't tell me, but he told my mother. My mother said, no, she's single. What about you? And he said, I've been divorced for 15 years. And she went, great. So they went to the restaurant together knowing this. I knew nothing.
Right.
To get there, and Orson orchestrated it that I was sitting next to him and gave me his card during the course of the dinner and drinks and invited me to the theater. But he very cleverly invited me to the theater like a week later, not the next day like most guys would. And, most guys would expect you to go to bed with them that night,
Absolutely,
I mean?
yes.
Right. I'm a
Uh-huh.
60 kid, right. But
The
he
real
was
gentleman.
He was a gentleman, but he also told me later he wasn't interested in having an affair. He wanted to marry me. Like he just knew it. And I kind of knew it right away too. I just went, this is, I've been waiting. I had, as he said, waiting in your way, but I had very bad taste in actors. I mean, they were, maybe gorgeous, but pretty abusive on the whole. And
Yeah.
like my dad had been kind of abusive and narcissistic, and that's what I was drawn to.
Right.
So, but Orson was really different and I wasn't used to it. So, we just took our time and got to really know, I said, all right. So he said, I want to get to know you. I want to know you as a human being and not just like dive into sleeping together. So like, we didn't even sleep together right away. Like, I think
That's
he
so
waited.
romantic, Allie.
Very romantic.
That really is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 months or something. And then he gave me this ring, an engagement ring, and said, you can just wear it or put it in a box or whatever. I just want you to know I'm committed. I'm serious if you are. And so I wasn't ready to get married. It was too scary to say yes.
How long were you dating?
We waited a year to get married from the day we met, April to April. But he put this on in the summer, like we were on an airplane. And I knew I put it on, but I didn't say yes. I said, I hadn't expected the guys that I'd been with to be abusive either. Do you know what I mean? So you just kind of don't know. And then suddenly like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And right before Orson, the actor had been extremely abusive and like thrown me against a wall, broke a glass, cut my face. I thought I was going to die. So that's when I went, all right. And I decided I should probably go to a shrink because I keep picking the same.
Yeah.
And I did.
That's traumatizing. My father was abusive and I picked the bad boys. Like I
I
found
bet
the
you
bad boys to be more
Yes, you-
exciting.
Yeah. Like you said, you got beaten at 2.
Yeah.
That's got to have huge consequences
Yeah.
on you.
And my first memory, I was in the crib. Literally, I knew I was in a crib. I saw like bars and a man over me, like attacking me. That's my first memory. So I met good guys,
Did you
but I
remember
passed up
that
on the good
always,
guys.
or did you remember that later?
No, I always had my 2 youngest memories. That one and my mother washing dishes. Like I'm looking up at her, so I had to be real little. Those are my 2 youngest memories before I was taken away from her.
No.
They say like when something's really traumatic, you remember it. You could block it out, which I didn't. I never blocked it out, but when it's really traumatic, yeah, you'll remember it. And so I always went for the bad boys, and I suffered because of it. Who was verbally abusive, who was physically abusive, who cheated,
And then didn't you think, which I did, it was me. Like if you keep picking people like that, you think there must be something wrong with me if I keep, right?
Yeah. No, I used to think that.
And
Yeah.
figure it all out.
Maybe I'm causing them to do this, or yeah. Maybe
Exactly,
it's something
you know?
about me. That's why they're
Yeah.
doing this. Yeah. Yeah. But then you learn it's not me.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing freedom,
Oh,
isn't it?
absolutely. So really
Are
he
you married now?
no, I'm widowed.
Oh, are you, babe?
I'm widowed. I'm widowed twice. So my husband, yeah,
I
my
knew
husband,
that. I think you told me that in New Jersey.
yeah, my husband of 30 years passed in 2008. And
Oh,
then my daughter's father, we never married, but we were together for 12 years and he passed in like 2015.
oh.
And I've gone on dates and it's just, no,
So
no.
you got a great one for the 30 years?
Was that?
You got a great one for the 30 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got a great, me too. Once you've had a great husband,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. And
it's
then
hard to find somebody
it's
amazing.
very hard. It's
I
hard
don't
to,
really need to or want to. I
right.
do, but it's only been 4.5 years for me.
Yeah. And how
But
do you
it's-
feel? Do you feel like you could love again, or do you feel like you
I
want
don't want
to?
to. I don't want
That's how I
to.
feel. Yeah, that's how I
I
feel.
will love, but not a guy. I mean, I'm
Right.
gonna love my grandchildren. I love my friends.
Right.
I will love new people in my life if they come in.
Yeah.
I have no need for that companion. When you feel like you've known someone that deeply, I mean, and also we got to realize, Denise, I think we're so lucky because I've married friends that don't have it. I can
Absolutely.
see they don't have it.
You're absolutely right. I have that too.
It's a thing to have a
Yeah.
connection like that. So, I just feel so lucky. And I can't ever imagine anybody replacing him. And so that I don't
Right.
want to.
Yeah.
I don't see
I'm
any
right
need
there with
for
you.
it. I'm not lonely.
Right.
I don't, there's nothing I miss except him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't need somebody to travel with, or I don't need somebody to go to dinner with. It's not like that. I just, I every once in a while, like when I was in New York, I was doing a play there and I went on dates with him. I went to our favorite restaurant and ordered what he would order.
I love that.
My script, yeah, and I'd have a glass of wine and toast him and walked in the park in Central Park. We'd always go to the boathouse for a glass of wine, so I'd go there and and then I began to think, am I a little crazy?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I just believe that they're looking down on us. I just know it, They're watching over us, rooting for us, cheering us on. I really believe that until we see them again. And I always say this life is so short. This life is
So
so
short.
It is so short.
I think you don't realize that as much until you're a widow. Yeah. Because when you've lost somebody, then you go,
absolutely.
I just go like that. I mean, I don't know about your husband. Was he older than you?
Well, he was 3 years older than me, and oddly enough, Allie, he was hit by a car. He
what?
He was hit by a car, oddly enough.
No way.
But it was a different outcome. So he was hit by a car, and then he was paralyzed from the neck down. So he survived for 3.5 years.
No.
And he couldn't move. He couldn't. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. It was bad.
Honey.
Yeah. So, but we got through it. We got through it. I have to say that God got me through it. There's a poem. I don't know if you ever heard it. It's called Footprints in the Sand.
Footprints in the sand? Oh, is it that there's God's footprint right next to you?
Yeah. So there's 2 sets, except when your life was like you really going through stuff, and there was only 1 set, and that's when the Lord was
when he was carrying you.
And
when God was carrying you.
Yeah, I say he carried me through and I would have ended up like Heather if it wasn't for the Lord. I would have been in a crazy house. I tell people that all the time.
I think I would too. Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
And I mean that's one of the great, and also I'm really gonna lose it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But it's like we know they're okay. I don't know what I'd do. I mean, if I didn't believe that there was a God and that he was, I mean, I am like, he's running, dancing, happy. I knew that literally from day one.
Absolutely.
I was traumatized by having seen it. I wish that hadn't happened, that I actually saw him get hit by a car, but whatever, that was part of God's plan, whatever. And I was afraid that because I woke up every time I closed my eyes, I would just see it and start screaming. But that went away in 2 days because the doctor called me on a Sunday that did the autopsy. And he said, I felt a need to call you. And I went like, yeah. And he said, you need to know that your husband was immediately killed on impact. He
Oh
never,
my God, thank
he said, I needed to tell you that. And I said, well, they told me to give him mouth to mouth after he was dragged under a second car. They lifted up the car, two men lifted up a car. The man that directed his one-man show that you saw, that one-man show about his life, he was happy to be at the theater. This was all at the theater. He and the guy that I was with, who was stage managing the play that I was ushering, Anthony, they both lifted up the car.
Oh my God.
And the fireman was there, and because we're right by a fire station, the theater. And he said, I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not a paramedic. You can give him mouth to mouth. I've got a heartbeat. Give him mouth to mouth and I'll pump. But what I didn't notice is the vertebrae was sticking out the top of his head. Like there was no way he was alive.
Oh my God.
I was too crazed to think anything. And he did have a heartbeat, but your heart keeps beating.
It does. I heard that. I'm sorry.
And the doctor knew to call me the minute that the autopsy was done. I guess it was the day later, not 2 days, and then from then on, I missed him. I was like, I still do. I'm not exactly in the same fog that I was then, because it's what it's like, that strange fog that happens with grief that you just don't know what's going on. But everything was so elevated, and so many people were surrounding me all the time. I felt completely protected by God.
Yeah.
Completely. And grateful.
Yeah. And you had that peace over you, right?
Completely peaceful.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. Me too.
And so I think about people that don't believe in God. How did they bear it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I hope anyone that's listening that has suffered great loss, that they know that they can turn to the Lord, and the Lord will give them that comfort. And
Orson used to say, just ask, just get on your knees and go, I don't know if there's, if there's really anything out there, but he just said, just say, if it's really anything out there, let me know. Just let me know in any way you can. I don't understand God. I don't know what it means, but just if there's someone out there, please just give me some kind of sign. Let me know.
Yeah. And he'll answer that. And he'll answer that prayer. Yep.
He answered it big time for Orson, because Orson, he got divorced from his his second wife was the one that was, the love of his life, and he had children with. And he was, because his mother had committed suicide, you've seen the story of his life. And
yes,
he was so devastated because it was, again, losing his mother, the love of his life and everything. And he wasn't he was afraid that he might become a drinker. So he went to AA. He was afraid that he might drink himself to death just because he was so bereft and didn't know how he'd lost her and what he'd done, and was willing to take responsibility. And that's when somebody just said, if you don't believe in a higher power, just ask, just get on your knees. And he goes, why should I get on my knees? And he said, because he likes it.
Yes. Well, you know what? That part where he was talking about how she called him. And for those that don't know, we're talking about Orson Bean. There's a one-man show on YouTube, and watch it. I watched it today. Oh my gosh.
It's called Safe at Home. Or you just put Orson Bean one-man show, it comes up.
Yes. I'll put the link in the description below.
Amazing, isn't it?
When the last time he spoke to his mother, immediately I wanted to hug him and say, you were just a kid and it wasn't your fault.
Your mother is a severe alcoholic and bringing one guy after another, way more than he said in the show, because, he didn't want to freak people out. But she brought a lot of people from the bar, one after the other, and he's sleeping in the next room. He was right to leave.
Yeah.
even
Absolutely.
though he was still in school, he was just a boy, you know? And when she called and wanted him to come back and was drunk, he went, "No, you're drunk." I think he was right to do that too.
Absolutely.
Because I think and also she, she'd said, "Come to bed with me." Don't remember, remember that part?
Absolutely.
I get sucked into that vortex of an alcoholic that you love
Yep.
and you want to be okay. He knew he was going to die in that house. He would get sucked into that and probably go to bed with his mother.
Yeah.
And just think what that would do to your brain.
Yeah. No, that would have totally
It's like,
messed his mind.
so
No.
that meanness in the tone of his voice, and he always remembers that he was mean to her by saying, "You're drunk."
Yeah.
But that saved his life.
That was his protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he felt up until, listen to this. I've never told you this story because I don't think, like I can't remember when I met you, but yeah, it definitely happened. That's right.
Yeah.
Because he had died before I met you. But the week, Orson was 91. The week of the Friday that he was hit by the car, on Monday, something happened to him. He was like something lifted off of my husband. He'd suffered with that thing with his mother. He'd gotten better and better and let go of more and more. It's like it was his biggest prayer, was to like be free and unfettered and not feel the guilt of it. It's very tough when a parent kills themselves. The kids always feel guilty. That's why you should never friggin' kill yourself, because it's the people you leave behind.
That
Never get over
suffer.
it.
True.
But Orson had an amazing life and he was generous and warm and loving and everything. But I saw it. I was his intimate other. So I could see it in his eyes every night that we were close. I could see it until he could let go of it. The fear of intimacy because of that push and pull.
Yeah.
He had with his mother. Well, this day he was like a 10-year-old. I mean, gone. Everything was gone. He wasn't afraid of anything. And we stayed in bed all day.
It's wonderful.
It was like this amazing thing. And I went, "Orson, what's happening to you?" And then, throughout the week, he said, let's go to the Caribbean. Let's just go. And I was working and I thought, well, I feel like I should stay and work. And I said, okay, but we'll go later or something. And so we just hung close to each other the whole weekend. And we just felt lighter and lighter. And then his eyes, which were brown, turned blue. And I'm like, this is really weird. He was just like floating. And that morning, Friday morning, before that night that he got hit by the car, he wakes me up at 6 o'clock in the morning and said, "You got to get up. I got to tell you something." And he said, "I've told you for like the past year, I felt like I have some kind of guardian angel or something." And I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "I don't really understand it. I don't know. I don't understand guardian angels. I've never really felt like I have one. So I don't know what you mean." And he said, "Well, he spoke to me in the kitchen just now." And I said, "Orson never lies about anything."
No. Wow.
Never. And I went, "Oh yeah? Okay." And I woke up and I sat up and he brought me coffee. I said, "What did he say?" And he said, "Orson," this is what he said, "Orson, you need to tell Allie that she has a guardian angel too." And he's killed in front of me that night.
God, I'm getting chills.
Come on.
Wow. That was definitely a message from above.
I mean,
And that you weren't alone when he
I
left this world.
told my pastor's daughter is my best friend. She is really, but her daughter is too. So she's more my age and her daughter's like 40, but we're all very, very close. I called her that more. She called me or something because we every once in a while talk in the morning to pray. And I told her what Orson told me. She came, both of them did, to the scene of the accident immediately. She was speaking that night, my pastor. She just came right away, put the mic down, came. And Gabe said she came into the tent that the police had put over me, where I was lying with Orson. They let me hold him for like 4 hours because they had to do a crime scene because there were 2 cars involved, And Gabe said to me, "Do you remember what you told me he said this morning?" And I hadn't remembered it at all. I went, amazing. But I know it's true. And I don't even
Definitely true.
understand it.
No, it's definitely true.
Don't understand it. But like you, I felt so protected. from the grief was so bearable.
And he
And
was ready. He was ready to go. Did you
isn't that
see?
weird?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I got chills when you told me that. I know my fiance John, it was shortly before he passed. My pastor friend came and prayed over him and he couldn't speak. And my pastor friend said, John, do you see an angel? And he shook his head, yes.
Wow.
And I believe that angel stayed with him because a few days later, when I was alone
When
with
was
him in
that?
the room,
At what point?
this had to be maybe 3 weeks before he passed. And
Wow.
and 2 days later, you know how we get skeptical and stuff. And I was alone with him and I said, John, did you really see an angel? And he went like that. I said, and the thing is, my daughter Frankie, his daughter, our mutual daughter, she was about 9 at the time, and she said, how do I pray for dad? And I said, pray that God sends him an angel. I swear, Allie, I swear. Because I always used to I pray for protection over my children. Lord, send angels around them, keep them safe, protect them when they leave the house. And so she prayed that the Lord would send him an angel. He had an angel with him. And I believe, and there's comforting angels, and I believe the angels stay with you until you cross over. And there's a movie that you got to see if you haven't. It's After Death. Have you seen that movie?
I maybe, but I've read the book.
Oh, you read the book.
I
Okay.
read the book. And I think I did see the movie. I saw a movie about near-death experiences. But
Yeah, it was like a pilot, the plane crash, and
No.
saw the plane crash and he was up over. It just recently came out. I think it's Angel Studios that produced it. But they all said something in common. They all said that at that point of death, they didn't feel like they died. They felt more alive.
Right. Everybody.
Yeah,
It's
right.
amazing. There's a really thick book and it's all near-death experiences of, and some people not so lucky
Right.
experience, I mean, these are all people that came back in order to write it,
Right.
and
Right.
ones that experienced hell. Oh my, it's like, oh,
Very scary. That's why we can't die without Jesus. Yeah. He's the way, the truth.
well, I don't ever really sort of tell anybody this, but I feel moved to tell whoever might be listening to this. Orson, when he was, I told you that he was devastated when he got divorced. And that's when he decided to join AA so that he wouldn't start drinking, or do something to himself because he was so depressed. He was in an apartment in New York. That's where he lived in New York City, up like on the 18th floor or something. Well, this might be in his one-man show. No, I don't think he talked
Is
about
it the paper plane?
No, but that's the same apartment. Did he talk about
Okay.
Jesus in his one-man show?
I don't remember that part.
Don't think so. I think he decided not to say it because it
Don't
can
want to
freak
offend anybody or.
people out. Do you know what I mean? And also sometimes people think, well, then why doesn't this happen to me? But anyway, when I met Orson, I was a Buddhist. I didn't believe in God. I didn't know God. I didn't realize that when I was little, the woman that raised me had taught me, because my parents were atheists and they made her like stop teaching me. They shook her and told her stop teaching me. But she sat me on her lap and read me the Bible and told me about that Jesus was with me. And I remember walking to school with him and everything. When I was really little, but
Wow.
got to be like about 6, my parents were like, you got to stop this, stop it, and shook her. This amazing woman who then went on, I knew her until she met Orson when she was 96.
Oh, wow. Praise
Yeah,
God.
she was up in Harlem. Somebody gave her a beautiful place to live. And anyway.
Nice. So she planted the seed.
But Orson was in this apartment just feeling close to suicidal. And all of a sudden, and he'd never been to church. He didn't read the Bible. He didn't really know who Jesus was, except maybe as a little boy, you hear about it in school. And there's Jesus standing in his apartment.
Wow.
And he said the feeling for the very first time that he'd ever experienced it in his entire life of unconditional love. He felt every single ounce of his body was accepted and loved. It said it was the most incredible experience he'd ever had. And then he was just gone. And then he said, like, I
Wow.
can't remember, it was a week later or 2 days later or something, whatever the time period was, it happened one more time that he was just standing there.
He saw him.
And I said to him when I met him, because I, at that point I was a Buddhist and I hadn't remembered, I didn't really remember this.
Childhood.
No, but it all came back to me. It's a long story. When I was looking for a school for atheist Jewish grandchildren, picture of Jesus, and it was the same picture of Jesus that the woman who raised me had by her bed.
Look at that.
Oh, like that.
Wow. And it all came back.
That's how I became a Christian, was seeing that picture from the 1930s on the wall. In a burnout, the church had burnt actually the week before, so it was a cafeteria, school cafeteria that they were having church.
Allie, did you write a book?
No,
You have to. Oh my gosh.
that thing with Orson, it's like I said, well, did you start reading the Bible right away to see what Jesus said? And did you go to church? He went, nope. Nope. He said, I just found a picture of Jesus. I put it by my bed and I just talked to him every morning and every night. And that's when he went and asked a guy, the guy in AA, how do you pray?
Yeah.
And he just
That's wonderful.
he called him the boy. He called, when he was old, he called Jesus the boy.
Now, did he tell you what he looked like? Usually when you hear someone sees a vision of Jesus, the first thing you want to know is, what did he look like? Did he look like the
He said he
pictures?
looked kind of, yeah. But he definitely, he said he was definitely in a robe, and bare feet. He said that, but that's all, he didn't describe his face particularly. Although the picture that he had by his bed, he'd gotten from there's a self-realization center here in LA, and some monk says, oh, I knew Jesus in a past life, and this is the best likeness of him. And he gave it to Orson, and it was like kind of a swarthy, not so much the blonde, blue-eyed Jesus, but a swarthy guy with long hair,
Right. Wow.
So I have it in my wallet, actually, that picture.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story. What a story. God is so good. And all he did was ask. And all we have to do is ask, right?
And in the first case, he didn't even ask. He just was sitting there.
Mhm.
But Jesus came.
I believe he just, I believe he has
He's showing up
boldness.
in a lot of places.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot in the Middle East, I've heard, now.
Yeah. People are seeing him, seeing visions.
Mhm.
So much is happening now, Allie. I mean, what do you think?
That's what I mean.
We had, I don't know if you know, the Statue of Liberty got hit by lightning.
Yes, I did.
Then 2 earthquakes in the
Yes.
same day.
In Jersey.
Yeah. And I'm in Staten Island. I'm on a dead end
Oh,
street.
wow. You must have really felt it.
Yeah, but I'm on a dead end street and the house is like this, boom, 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 boom. And at first you're thinking, because we never get earthquakes, must be a big tractor trailer, but what tractor trailer is coming down a dead end street?
Right.
Then when it didn't stop, I yelled up to my daughter. I was like, it's an earthquake, get under a doorway. Like, I don't even know the protocols for an earthquake. I'm like, get under a doorway. And then all my neighbors came out. Everybody's like, oh my God, what was that? It had to be an earthquake. And then again at 6 o'clock that night, because that was about 10:25 in the morning, 6 o'clock around there. Another one, not as strong, but another one.
Oh, we didn't know that. You got like an aftershock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think it was like a 4.3, and the one in the morning was a 4.8.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shock. That's like a second.
Yeah, they're
earthquake.
saying it was a second earthquake. So and then what came out? Oh, the eclipse. I mean, a lot of people thought something big was going to happen for the eclipse. I don't know if you heard. And I was like,
No.
They were saying the rapture, I said, but nobody knows the day or the hour, people were panicking. I'm like, just enjoy it. I thought it was beautiful.
First of all, what's to panic?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to panic, we should panic about the world. What's happening in the world?
It's awful.
I mean, I live in Venice Beach. I said, yes, I really resisted this, but I guess 2 years ago, year ago, I don't know when, but we have a really, really severe homeless crisis in Venice Beach. We're like Skid Row is the other place in LA, but Venice Beach is the second. And, 5 people are dying a day on the streets. It's like, it's crazy.
It's awful.
And, yesterday I live in a place called the Venice Canals. And yesterday, 2 days ago, 2 women were brutally assaulted. One almost dead in a coma, hit over the head and then stripped and raped and left with bleeding on the sidewalk. At two different locations, 2 different, women had nothing to do with one another. I mean, it's like,
That's scary.
It's
not
a
even
really
it's not even
scary
safe to be on the street.
no, and then there's all of this, and then there's people making $5 billion a year while people are starving. It's
No,
a
I know.
Very-
And yeah, and
crazy
what's
time.
what bothers everybody so much is take care of your own people instead of bringing in all these other people. And
Yeah.
you're not even taking care of your own people. You have people living on the street. You have veterans that are living on the street and they fought for our country. It's like, take care of your own people first,
Yeah. Yes.
it's, I don't know. It's, the Bible says in the end times, what's good is going to be considered bad and what's bad is going to be considered good, and everything's going to be turned upside down. And that's what we're seeing now.
I feel like the logic of so many people that I know who are theoretically really smart, the logic is crazy. That's one thing I'm trying to rely on is wisdom. There is such a thing, which nobody wants to say anymore, but there is such a thing as truth. And there is such a thing as a lie.
Absolutely.
We don't want to say that anymore. There is such a thing as right. And there is such a thing as wrong. It's not all the same.
Right.
And even the tiny little thing like, no, none of my grandchildren can win at soccer. Everybody wins. No, they don't.
Everybody gets a trophy.
You know what I mean? But that's it's just this way of thinking
Right.
that's gotten so convoluted.
Yeah.
And we don't have a narrative coming down from grandparents to say, there's a way. It's like to walk in love. How do you do it? There's a way to walk in love. And sometimes it's tough.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to say, Denise, no.
Tough love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or just tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But
People can't handle the truth today. People they get
cannot.
offended for every little thing. Every little thing is
yeah. And then
offensive.
if you say something, then, I'm on our neighborhood council, and that's where I'm the chair of the homelessness committee. And, a lot of people want to get rid of me.
'Cause
It's
you're
not like
outspoken.
death threats or anything like that, but it's
Right.
definitely
'Cause
hate.
you don't
Hate.
go along with their narrative. Is that why?
I just say what I think.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to find the highest solution, which aren't easy. Because every time somebody gets housed, somebody else comes from somewhere else to fill in the hole. And there's no way that any amount of money is going to house 76,000 people.
No.
And that's going to be replaced again by another person because California just keeps, you know what I mean? So it's like, you got to be honest too.
Yeah.
We have to find a solution for everybody.
Yeah.
And also not allow people to just sit there dying on the streets, especially women and children. It's like, it's not okay.
Yeah.
It's really
That's
hard.
heartbreaking. That really is. And there's only so much you could do, but thank God you are standing in the gap and you're
Well,
doing
it's
what you
weird,
can.
Denise. I can say this. Well, can I? It's a spoiler alert, but I guess I don't care. But in GH, Heather's going to have to face what she did, which I never have. I mean, I've always sort of thought that, I've been driving like a force of a light, and I really feel like all the people that I hooked had it coming. I really believe that Trina Robinson, was like, is like against my daughter.
Yeah.
And, look out, because anybody that messes with my daughter, look out. And I felt very justified. And that's what I've been doing for like 2 years. And it's been fun, because she's got a logic, and it's to her, it's the light, and she's doing the right thing.
Right.
But in order for me to ever get out of the clink, because I have killed people, I'm going to have to face what I did. And, it's like the sad part of what just happened on the canals yesterday, day before yesterday, is that poor guy that almost killed 2 women, hitting them over blunt instrument over the back of their head, cracking their skulls, bleeding, ripping their clothes off, and raping them.
Oh God, that's
That guy's ill. He's ill. So it's like, yeah, it's criminal and horrible. But to me, the kind of corporate greed that's going on is almost worse.
Yeah.
It's like somebody like that is just ill. We've got
Yeah.
so many mentally ill people.
And
we've
how are
gotta
they
put
taking
them
care of
in-
them? What are
we
they
have to
doing?
put- We have to find ways to put them in places where they can get help.
Yeah.
But that's really complicated. Everybody said that those institutions we had were so cruel. It's
There's no easy answer, right?
yeah.
No easy answer.
No.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're doing.
I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I'm
Well-
just saying yes every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Somebody said, what was the expression? Oh yeah, just do the next best thing. Whatever's in front of you, just do it.
Yeah.
Whatever, like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do it.
That's it.
I'll do whatever God says that I should do that's right. Do that thing.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
talking to somebody on the sidewalk, and that's what's put in front of me, and
Right.
I'll take the time to do that.
Yeah.
You
Even bringing just encouraging somebody,
Yeah.
bringing hope to somebody. It means so much.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
So when I met you, you told me I am up for an Emmy and you won. I was rooting for
Crazy,
you.
right? At
And you won.
73.
I was so excited, so excited. And I just want to read a quick statement that you made, if you don't mind,
No.
because I thought it was amazing. Okay, so you said during your Emmy acceptance speech, I had just lost my beloved husband. It was pretty traumatic. And then I get asked to play a seriously traumatized person who kills a lot of people, but she's got a heart of gold. And she's barreling towards the light all the time. And it gave me that ability to keep going and barrel towards the light. And I can truly, as a widow, I could truly resonate with you. And, I just, again, and not to keep going over it, but what would you tell a widow that's watching right now? How do you barrel through it? How do you keep going?
Well, I mean, you and I have just been saying how lucky we are that we have, someplace to turn, that we can turn to God. If I belong to a widows group, but like 2 of the women in my widows group do not believe in God. One is George Carlin's widow and a very good friend of mine. She lives right across the alley from me. But she loves it, right? Because the woman that's leading it, is a barreler towards the light. She's a very strong, amazing person who just lost her husband, who was an apostle of 7 churches in Chicago. And she's an amazing human, Darlene Turner, just like, and she started a widows network because she feels we need to have more of them. And I guess what I would say, is, yeah, life is very different. We all know, but I think one of the weird blessings of it is that we know that life is very quick. And it makes me realize that how important it is to use my time to do something that's meaningful, that's going to maybe, push that needle towards happiness, where again, whatever I'm given to do, and we're all going to be given different things to do. We're given different assignments, but try to listen to what my friend who doesn't believe in God, who's visiting me right now, is a divorcee. And she just said she feels no sense of purpose. And I said, you've got to find it. That's, I think, the most important thing is, first of all, what makes us happy. But usually what makes us happy is making other people happy. That's just kind of a fact of, it's like almost like a law of, how everything works. So like, just like learning that love walk, and where are you going to do it in the area of your life is what I would say to a widow, is find that thing that, will bring you joy. And then the other thing, is I know, and it really helps me to know that my husband's so happy. Makes me mad sometimes. You're free, shut up.
You know what? I always say that they're doing better up there than we are down here.
Yeah.
Great advice. Now, before I let you go, in honor of Orson, who was a longtime panelist on the television game show To Tell the Truth and Match Game.
He did Password all the time.
He did do Password too, yes.
With Betty White.
Yes.
That's how we were friends, yeah.
Well, Betty White and I go back so far that I watched the Beatles make their American debut on the Ed Sullivan Show at Betty's house with Betty and her husband. That's a long time before most of the people who watched this show were born. I met her through her husband, Alan Ludden, on the game show Password. And more recently, my wife, Allie Mills, who played the mother on The Wonder Years, has been for the past 5 years on a soap called The Bold and the Beautiful. And Betty played her mother. And in a Emmy Award, the Daytime Emmy Award-winning episode, Betty died in my wife's arms, and it was a very touching and sad scene. But, of course, the minute she was dead, she began cracking everybody up.
I'm going to do a quick game show with you.
Uh-oh.
Can I ask you a quick
Like this.
5
I have to tell
questions?
you, we went on the pyramid together. It was a
Did you?
nightmare for me. Yes. With Donny Osmond or whatever his name is.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
it was a nightmare because I don't think, you know, it was like I had to give a synonym for the word deck. And I'm like,
Oh, that's rough. Yeah, no.
really hard. Like I went chair, cards, and the person's like, "What?" You know, I'm so not.
Well,
good at
this is stuff that you most likely know. It's just to jog
right.
your memory, just to jog your memory a little bit and see how much you remember. Okay. So the first question to you is, in which of your sitcoms that you were on did you pour orange juice on someone's head? Do you remember?
Wow.
Took a glass of orange juice and poured it right on their head. This was a while ago, a long time ago.
Long time ago, before the Wonder Years, then one of the old ones.
Yes.
The Associates?
It was the Associates.
No
Yes.
kidding. Whose head
Yes.
did I pour it on?
Martin Short. It was
I
Martin
did?
Short. Yes. That was great.
don't remember that.
He was using you as like a guinea pig so he would know how to flirt with this other girl in the office.
Oh, how awful of him.
And you had a crush on him and he's telling you how wonderful you are, but he's really practicing on you for the other girl. So you went and you took the orange juice, poured it on his head. I love that.
Come in out of the rain because I kept hoping that Sarah would change her mind and come back out.
Sarah? This all happened because you were chasing Sarah?
Yeah.
And yet you turn around and expect me to nurse you when you catch a cold. You know, sometimes I think I'm a real pushover. But other times, I'm proud of myself.
You know, that was my first job.
Was that?
Big job. That everybody wanted that job because it was Jim Brooks. It was like the king of, you know, all the Mary Tyler Moore.
Mary Tyler Moore.
I mean, he was like such a genius, Jim Brooks. He still is. I mean, then he went and did, you know, all those incredible movies that he did, you know, like trying to think of the movie with Deborah Winger that was so great. But
Oh, Officer and a Gentleman. He did that one.
no.
I can't think of her, any of her other movies. Yeah.
But I think he got an Oscar nomination, if not an Oscar, for that first movie that he did with Deborah Winger. But he was a genius.
Yeah.
And I had never like gone in on something that big. And I was in my 20s. And I read the script and one of the characters was like a Jewish poor girl from Queens. And the other was a rich wasp that went to Harvard. So I figured, you know, since I went to Yale, I was probably going to read for that part, but it was supposed to be some drop dead gorgeous girl. And I went, well, I'm never going to get that part. But I put on a blue blazer and pearls and I decided to be really entitled. And that's how I was going to get the guy, because it's the girl that always got the guy. So I came in with this thing, you know, that I was just like, who wouldn't be with me? Like anybody would be with me. And I curled my hair and it was blonde and everything, but I wasn't the prettiest girl in the room. And Jim Brooks fell on the floor. He thought it was the funniest thing he's ever seen. And he went, honey, do you really think you're going to be the girl that gets the guy? And he said, read Leslie, the other part. I said, but she's Jewish and thing. He said, so you'll be Italian and poor. Who gives a shit?
Oh
And
my
he said,
gosh.
the other role. And when I did the screen test, he said to me, the camera was rolling. It was just me and Jim Brooks. And he said, I want you to read the lines you're going to read to the Martin Short character to a tree to tell him, you know. And he said to me right before it again, he goes, honey, you better realize who you are. You are never going to be that girl that gets the guy. And I just started crying.
That's
I did this scene coming on to the tree with tears coming down my face. And he went, we're done. You got it. You got the job. He was a great director though. See,
Yeah.
what he said to me.
That was brutally honest. And
he
but
said,
that was his opinion.
all comedy comes from pain. And he said, that's what I'm trying to teach you. It's the fact that you're not going to get the guy that's going to make you barrel towards being funny, you know, and want him and you're going to get Martin Short. And it wasn't Martin Short that I ended up reading with, but it ended up being another guy, but he ended up getting the job. But Jim Brooks was really a genius because he was like 400 pounds once. So he knows from not, you know, now when he was doing that, he was like rich and handsome and had a Jaguar and was married to a gorgeous stewardess, but that was not his background.
Look at that.
He showed me a picture of himself and I went, oh, and he had pimples and he was huge.
Wow.
I went, oh my God, that was you. So he was a very, you know, he taught me a lot about
It's a good lesson. Yeah.
Always an underbelly when it's good, you know? Yeah.
That's great.
Anyway,
that was what, 1979,
oh, yeah,
right? 1979.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, second question.
That was my first big sitcom.
Nice. I loved it. I started watching some of the episodes.
It was a great show.
Yeah, really was. What actor did you play opposite in which you had a scene playing the drums?
John Candy.
Yes.
Oh God, love of my life.
What was it like working with him?
I was in love with him and it was kind of mutual, but he was married with kids. So we didn't do anything, but we were really, really close. He used to call me all the time after. I mean, for years after. We really became very, very close friends. I loved him. Great human being, like one of the best, just one of the best. And I loved working with him. Again, I went to read for a different part in that because it was the senator's daughter. She was supposed to be drop dead beautiful. It was a crazy movie. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it was like John wrote it and then they had to change it because they wanted it to shoot it in Spain so they could all go to Malta where they shot Popeye and all those movies because apparently it's a big cocaine island and fun to work on. And we ended up shooting it at Universal and they had to change the script. But it was a senator's daughter, but then the sister was this total weirdo. So I went in and, you know, again, like dirty hair, like I did for the other series, and knee socks and a weird charm bracelet. And I was the senator's weird daughter. And John Candy went, who are you? And he said, I want you to read for my wife. And he turned to David Steinberg, who was directing it. He said, tell her to like go in the bathroom or something and change her look. And I went in the bathroom and took off my knee socks and combed my hair and put on some makeup and came back. And John said, I want her. And that's how I got that part.
Wow. And you were perfect in it. You were wonderful in that part.
It was a very strange movie, but I loved him.
It was a little, it was funny. When I saw you playing the drums, I'm like, look at her go. Look at Norma. Norma on the drums.
I do play the drums.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I played the drums as a little girl. That was the instrument that I picked.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so.
He's also a guy who's about to get married.
This next song is dedicated to my fiance. The things that she can do with her mouth.
Nancy is a girl with many talents.
Who just happens to be the daughter of a guy that could be the next president of the United States.
Presidential candidate Ed Reese.
This is pure crud.
Being his son-in-law can create a few problems.
You will kill this man.
It can turn a soft-hearted ladies' man into a handcuffed, hardened criminal. And it can turn the climax of a wedding into a premature infatuation.
It's hickey time!
Don't miss the film of the century, a movie that has it all. action, adventure, and gut-wrenching suspense. It's more like a party than a movie. It's more like going berserk.
Okay, the next question is a Wonder Years question, and you had actually brought up this episode. So on the Wonder Years in the Pottery Will Get You Nowhere episode, what drink started the big fight?
Drink?
Yeah. Jack was looking for a drink. That you were all out of it. Do you remember?
No. It would be scotch if it was for Jack, but if it was not that kind of a drink, no.
It was a soda. It was a soda that you were all out of, and you didn't get a chance. Okay, well, this cracked me up. This cracked me up because I had to play it a few times to see. It was mentioned in that scene. It was mentioned 8 times. It was Pepsi.
Oh.
You made that? Mm-hmm. That's really nice. I like that.
Mom, that is beautiful. Look at this. Yeah, that one didn't turn out too bad, did it?
No, it's really good.
You know, I didn't follow instructions on this one. Richard told us to keep our eyes closed, and when he shut his, I peeked.
You are turning into such a rebel. I mean, tomorrow we're going to come home and find you burning your bras.
Karen!
You know, Mom, you should make more like this one. I mean, I bet you could sell them at the little craft store down by the movie theater.
You really think so?
Yeah.
Did you get the Pepsi?
Oh, I forgot.
Great.
Well, I'm sorry. I just forgot.
I know.
I'm sorry. Don't get upset. I'll just go get it now.
I'm not upset. It's just that you said you were going to get the Pepsi. If I'd known you weren't going to get the Pepsi, I would have gotten it myself. I mean, you shouldn't say you're going to get Pepsi for someone if you're just going to forget to get it.
Oh, I see. I'm supposed to know when I'm going to forget something.
Sure. I knew you were going to forget.
Time to check the score on the old ball game. There really wasn't much I could add to the conversation.
You know, Dad, sometimes you can be such a male chauvinist pig.
Karen, on the other hand, somehow knew just the right thing to say.
Where are you going?
Better get your Pepsi while it's still fresh on my mind.
Don't bother. I'll get it.
No, that's okay, Jack. I'll get it.
I said I'll get it.
Don't break it!
I'm not going to break it, Norma.
Just because you hate my pottery's no reason to smash it to pieces.
I don't hate your pottery.
Notice he didn't say he liked it.
Well, you certainly act like you hate it.
And what's that supposed to mean?
It means that from the moment I started doing this, you haven't had one nice thing to say.
Oh, maybe I'm not big on pottery, so sue me.
Well, you certainly seem fond of your stupid little fish cup. I've never seen anyone so attached to anything since Kevin had to give up his blankie.
I don't want to talk about this.
Well, maybe I do, Jack. It's not fair. You're making me feel like I'm doing something wrong.
You're crazy. I'm not making you feel anything.
Oh, sure. You've been a regular Mr. Sunshine. You know, Jack, the kids all say, "That's nice, Mom." My friends say, "That's nice, Norma." My teacher says, "Very good, Mrs. Arnold." And you say, "Where's the Pepsi?"
I really don't have time for this.
I spend my time trying to make something nice for the family, and you don't even have the common courtesy to say you like it.
Don't give me that, Norma. This family doesn't need an ashtray for 200 people. This family needs Pepsi.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Jack, you should listen to yourself. I want my Pepsi. I want my cup. You sound like an infant.
Don't you ever speak to me in that tone of voice.
I'll speak the way I want.
Fine. Don't expect me to listen to it.
We must have been advertising it.
It's so funny. It's like, I want my Pepsi. I want my. He goes on.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the Pepsi?
I do now remember. No, I remember him saying that.
Yeah.
I remember him saying that and being really crabby. I do remember that part. that caused the explosion.
That started it because you were all out of Pepsi because you didn't have time to pick it up because you're at your pottery.
I was still at my pottery.
Right.
Wow.
And the last one, this was one of daytime's biggest success stories based around a hospital and the lives of all who worked there. And the first episode was in 1963. What is the show, Heather?
General Hospital.
General Hospital. Is General Hospital the longest running soap opera now?
I think so. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's our 60th anniversary. I imagine. Yeah. Older Than Young and Restless, Older Than Bold and Beautiful. What's the fourth one that's on? Days?
Days of Our Lives is still on?
No?
Okay. One Life to Live is gone, and all My Children is gone.
I think Days is left, and it might be online even, but I think that might be equally, because they all started as radio shows, like before even they were TV. So
Oh, I
it's
didn't
like,
know that.
yeah, back in the 50s. Yeah, they were all, radio soap operas. And but I watched tons of those early episodes of General Hospital in the 60s because my character, Heather, was on then as a teenager. So I wanted to see what she was like.
Yeah.
And what like her story was, and
Mhm.
she get to be a bad girl. But
Right.
in Sweet College, you're just born that way, I think.
Like, how did it all start, right? But yeah.
I made it up in my mind.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, you did an amazing, like you brought you took some of how she had, like some of her characteristics, but you kind of made it your own. Like when you went into it, did you feel like you needed to copy her, or?
I didn't want to. I really, really thought Robin Mattson did an amazing job, but we're very different. And I, again, wanted more light. I just wanted her to have a place that she was from and a place that she wanted to be, that she was going. And I also, I just thought the writing was smart. I thought that she was very smart. And so I feel like she's the smartest person in the room, which is her secret, She doesn't do that, but it's like she acts like she doesn't know what's happening. But
Right.
Pen! A bedpan! My kingdom for a commode! Well, that's more like it.
Hello, Miss Weber. My name's Dr. Hamilton Finn.
Finn? Huh. What kind of a name is... Wait. I know you. You're the one that slut Elizabeth Weber took up with barely 5 minutes after my Franco was cold.
You're Franco's mom. My condolences.
Right. You're so sorry for my loss. You're keeping his widow's bed warm.
Anyhow, let's talk about the reason that you're here.
I want to talk about you. My whore of a daughter-in-law.
We're not talking about my personal life.
We'll talk about whatever I damn well want to talk about.
Tell you what, would you like a nice psychiatric consult? I'm pretty sure I can find someone on staff you haven't already assaulted.
Oh, spicy. I like you. You deserve so much better than that bed hopper, Elizabeth. You know you're just a shiny stethoscope, right? Placeholder till some other knight comes along to rescue her, just so she can push him away, exactly like she's gonna do to you.
You don't know Elizabeth at all.
And you do?
Have you been overseas lately?
Only in my dreams. Why, big boy?
I'm just trying to figure out how you came in contact with a bacteria that's mostly found in the rainforest.
Well, there are all kinds in Darkham. There are some crazy people in that place.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Look, Miss Weber.
Please. You're screwing my son's wife. You could call me Heather.
I don't want to alarm you, Heather, but this particular strain of bacteria is particularly voracious that literally feeds on your own skin.
You mean you can eat me alive?
I'm not gonna let that happen, but I do need to know how you contracted it. When was the last time you left Darkham? Look, you're obviously a very clever person.
Like son, like mother.
Okay. And it must be child's play for someone like you to sneak out when the guards aren't looking and sneak back in and no one's the wiser.
You're too good for her. Franco's wife, I mean. Leave her. Before she leaves you.
Okay, I'm not here to talk to you about Elizabeth. We're here to talk about you.
Then don't say I didn't warn you, Doc. And I'm never wrong. Just ask Jeff Weber. Ring a bell? How about my old friend Anna Devane? She's still around?
Weren't you the one that hit her over the head with something?
Also tried to shoot her. That snooty little slug. That's what they call people like her where she's from.
Don't talk about Anna that way.
Okay. How is sweet, slatternly Anna these days?
Probably none of your business.
Ooh. Sounds like she's in trouble. Maybe there's a God after all.
But that's why she's so
why.
macking. I thought if you're gonna, see, Robin Masson didn't have to kill people with a hook. I had to come on killing people with a hook. That's how it originated, right? When it was me. When she comes back into town, it's because there's all these hook killings.
Yeah.
So I wanted to lighten that as much as I possibly could. The horror of, or else go full tilt towards evil, evil, evil.
Yeah.
Vicious evil. And that was just like, and that didn't seem like Heather to me, not the way that Robin was playing it. Robin was nuts, and like funny. So I wanted to keep, so that's why I sort of tried to make it.
Because you could, and almost make the character likable, even though,
At least, acceptable, understanding,
Right,
some
right.
people would just go, ugh,
Right.
It's very weird playing a villain.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. It's horrible.
Yeah.
He was horrible, but he's fascinating. Right. So
Yeah.
I wanted, that kind of thing.
Yeah, there was something about him that you just liked.
And he was funny too.
Yeah. Well, like Dexter, I don't know if you ever watched Dexter, and Dexter was a serial killer. But
Oh, no,
you,
didn't.
but
I
you
heard that.
you
I-
liked Dexter because
Yeah.
Dexter was killing killers, basically. He was
Right.
going after the bad guys, so you just always kind of like put that on the side that he was a serial killer. You really liked the character, and you liked that he was getting rid of the bad guys,
Well, that's what I was hoping people would think about Heather, because everyone I killed, I thought deserved it.
Yeah.
There were a couple of accidents where she killed people just because I think they wanted to get rid of them on the show, to be honest with you. But
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
Allie, you're wonderful. I am
It's
so
amazing
glad I
to
met you, and
meet you.
so glad you
Me too.
got to sit
I
down
didn't
with
know a
you.
whole lot about you, or maybe if you told me, I forgot.
Yeah.
Because I do that too. I don't know if you do, but
Yeah,
it's just-
yeah. I mean, I do forget. Yeah, but no, we didn't really get to talk too much. It was a little crazy for the
Yeah.
chiller event. A
That
lot
was
going on.
a crazy time, that
I
chiller
remember
thing.
I came back to talk to you, but then, you guys were taking pictures. It was just a crazy time,
A lot of time.
but you were amazing. You're like, here's my number. Yes, you can interview me. You're such
Yeah,
a
well,
sweetheart.
that way we could do this. And I knew I wanted to, but I didn't
Yeah.
realize that we were like fellow widows and fellow lovers of God and
A
all
lot
that.
in, lot in common. A lot in common. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would love to, anytime you want, jump on with you again.
Yeah.
And, and maybe we can get Dan Laurie to join us. I saw him the last time I went back. I saw
The
him
zombie face.
in October.
Dan's not acting, by the way. That is Dan.
So true. It's
Oh,
when
he's
you're having a
totally-
conversation, it's so true.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
100%. And I love him, but he's Mr. Grumpy Pants. We did a reading of Our Town, a beautiful play. He goes, oh, this play's been done too much and it's not that great anyway. I went, Dan, it's Our Town. It's a beautiful, nah. I said, why'd you do it? He goes, well, you were in it. And he brought his friend Patty McCormick, did
Yes,
Chiller.
from that, yes. When she was bad or something that
Bad scene. Yeah.
Bad
And so
scene.
Patty was in the play with us, and then we went out to dinner, and all Dan, we went, he was complaining the whole time. Dan, shut up. You must have liked doing it, or you wouldn't have done it.
Right.
And he goes, well, I get to be with you girls.
Oh,
Okay, good. Pick up the check.
there you go. I love it.
I think he's doing a play right now in New York.
Is he?
So with Patty. I think he's doing the play he wrote.
I should find out. I got to follow him. I got to figure out how to find out what he's up to. I guess he has a website and I can find out.
I think he probably does. I
Yeah.
don't bet he does. I don't have anything. I don't Instagram.
Yeah. Nothing. Facebook? No. Are you on Cameo? You should go on Cameo.
Not on any social media.
Well, Cameo is actually where someone would say, "Hey, it's my birthday, and I would love, for Allie Mills to send me a birthday greeting." And then it's just
Yeah,
an
but
app.
they charge money for that. It made me feel, I have to be honest with you.
Oh,
It feels funny. Like at Chiller, I've been to a million fan events because of Bold and Beautiful, but we never charge money. We
yeah.
go to a fan event, and it's part of the deal of being on Bold and Beautiful. And we all have lunch and it's really fun. And you meet all the fans and you spend the afternoon. And that's part of the deal because that's your audience, right? And they come from all over the world.
Yeah.
But this was kind of weird. You charge money for a picture. You feel a
Yeah.
little funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Feel
And
a
it,
little bit like a whore, as Orson used to say.
it
Not how much you're
creeps me out.
getting, it's that you're getting anything at all.
Right, right, right.
He was with Brenda Vaccaro.
Yeah.
He tried it. He's like, no, I'm not doing this
Oh,
anymore.
did Brenda do it one time? Oh, you
No,
said
no, no. He
the
just
whole
she
idea
said
behind
no.
it, he would never do
No,
it.
he's
Yeah.
like her. No.
Yeah.
I'm not
But I
doing
got to
it.
tell you, I went to there's a museum on Broadway, and I think it's TV and film museum, and you get to look up old shows. And so I went and I looked up an old Johnny Carson episode, and Brenda Vaccaro was on and Orson Bean was on. They were both on sitting next to each
No.
other. Yes.
Wow.
And then of course I'm taking out my phone and I'm trying to snap a little picture. Excuse me, no pictures, no video. And I'm like, but
Wow.
they were all together. I was like, oh my God, how great. Small world.
She must have been very young.
She was. She
Yeah.
was very, in fact, she was still with Michael Douglas. So she was young.
Oh.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't know that she was with Michael Douglas for 7 years.
Was it 7 years?
It
Wow.
was 7 years. And then when it came time, he wanted to get married and she just didn't want to get married. Yeah. And yeah.
Wow.
But she's still working. She just did a movie with Lorraine Bracco and Susan Sarandon called
Wow.
Nona's. We have a restaurant here on Staten Island, and it's only grandmothers cooking in the kitchen. So they
Oh.
hire Italian grandmothers, Egyptian
Oh,
grandmothers,
oh, you
all
mean real
different cultures.
grandmother?
Real grandmothers come into the kitchen and
Wow.
cook the Sunday sauce. If it's an Italian grandmother,
No.
authentic. Yeah.
Wow.
And so they ended up making a movie about it. And
Wow.
Vince Vaughn, it didn't come out yet, but Brenda plays the Italian Nona, which is great,
Wow.
right? And I said to her, I said, the restaurant's right on Staten Island. Let me take you there and you get to meet the owner. So I picked up Brenda Vaccaro. She lives in the city, brought her to Staten Island, brought her to the restaurant. Who was
Wow.
working there that night but the Italian grandmother that she's portraying in the movie?
No.
And she says,
No.
and she's telling Brenda, Brenda's telling her, I have a scene where I'm sitting at the table, I'm a widow, and I'm talking to my husband who's not there. I'm having a conversation. And she goes, that's me. She goes,
Wow.
that's my husband. So they got to meet, which I thought was wonderful.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she got to meet the character she was playing. And
Wow.
so that should be coming out.
Wow. They should do a thing with that movie like they did with Naiad, where they show the people at the end. Did you see Naiad?
No.
Oh, you should see it. It's on
Yeah?
Netflix now.
Oh, I'll look for it.
And that
Show the
Benny
real
Hill.
people. Yeah, that would be great.
At the end, you see that the real Naiad and you see her real girlfriend and all that stuff. But it's like it's worth slogging through. At the beginning, I thought, I don't want to watch this.
Yeah.
But her performance is so good, Annette Bening.
Oh,
There was a reason she got nominated for an Oscar. Really, she deserved it because it's very generous performance and very humble.
Yeah.
And at first, I thought, oh, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Who cares, But then you start to care. It's sweet. It's a sweet hour. It's worth watching.
Oh, I definitely got to check it out.
Yeah.
Allie, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your work, first of all, okay? Because it's so meaningful and it touches so many lives, touched my life. And like I said, watching you in the Wonder Years, it was, oh my God, it just did so much for me when I was going through things. It just, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to ask you if you have any final thoughts, any last words you want to say to the viewers?
No, not except this has been an unexpected time with you, very unexpected. I don't believe in coincidence.
I don't either.
A really deep time. So, because I do have a different perspective now that time is really short, life is short, go for it. You know, I mean, I use that expression, and the thing that came to me in the middle of the night, barrel towards the light. And they told me I was going to have like 10 seconds to speak. And I'm like, what can you say in 10 seconds? Nothing. But then the guy right before me, Lou Gossett, not Lou Gossett, but Robert Gossett, who won the Emmy right before me, he spoke for like 2 minutes, and I went, I'm going to talk then. And I remembered what I thought of. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I got that. I've never heard the expression barrel towards the light, but you know, do it. Whatever it is that you feel, you know, you're supposed to be doing on this earth, just do it, because you never know. None of us know, like, when our time's going to be up. And so, and then we have to just, you and me, Denise, just enjoy it too. You know what I mean? Love every second of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's our
Thank you for
promise.
that. Thank you for that. I love you so much.
Love you too. This has been really a unexpected, beautiful afternoon.
Beautiful time together. I feel like we bonded.
Yeah, we did.
My sister in the Lord.
Yeah, I am.
You're my sister.
That's what we are.
There you go.
A family.
That's right. All right.
I do
Okay.
that.
Well, guys, thank you so much for watching, and check out the Wonder Years if you haven't checked out the Wonder Years. Norma Arnold. Oh my God, amazing character. As well as everyone else, you're gonna love. It's such a feel-good, iconic TV show. And don't forget to check Allie out on General Hospital as Heather. Thank you. When do you guys resume filming? Or are you still filming?
I just did.
Okay.
I just sort of gave away the secret of what that was about, but I'm getting better.
Okay.
We'll see what that means.
Okay.
Because I never know.
Right.
Right. You know.
Only the writers know.
All right, Angel.
Thank you
Ciao.
again. I love you.
You
Talk to
too.
you soon. God bless.
God bless.
Bye.